Orestria, a goth girl in Japan, and these are my seasonal impressions for spring 2022. And this season was a season of romance, with piles of romance anime. Perfect for the forever alone like myself. As always, I have ordered the shows I watched from worst to best and divided them into 3 categories: Nope, Fine, and Recommend. And we start, as always, with the Nope category. Shows that I think are not worth your time. Shin Nikito-sen. I get that fan service is a thing, but you're supposed to have a show and attach fan service to it, not the other way around. And sometimes it doesn't bug me. Hell, sometimes it's funny. I've watched Agent Aika multiple times. But this was just kind of gross. And I wish that porn would get more budget, so that people who want porn could just watch porn. Black Rock Shooter Dawnfall. The original Black Rock Shooter has been on my to-watch list for a while, and I haven't gotten there yet. But I read that this was not a continuation, so I watched it. We're in a Terminator-type scenario, with the remaining human beings being hunted by sentient machines, and apparently used as biofuel for them. Only in this case, our hero is a superpowered anime lolly. I feel like I know what the show was going for, but it never took time to breathe, and I think that it was better at giving the impression of being epic rather than actually being epic. And it had some really strong misogynistic vibes. Honestly, I found watching it exhausting. Kono healer mendokusai. This healer is bothersome. A low-level warrior picks a fight with a Magibeast bear, a bear with a horn. He is quickly getting his ass whooped when a healer wanders by. She's got a terrible personality. He also has a terrible personality. She accidentally curses him such that he'll die if they're too far apart. They're so annoying that the bear reveals they can talk and starts trying to mediate their argument. Even upping the speed to 2 times, it was so painful I didn't make it halfway through the episode. The funniest joke is that the bear can't keep its speech tick correct, sometimes ending sentences with gao, and sometimes ending with bea. In conclusion, kono anime, mendokusai. Shisho Saikyo no Daima o Murabito ani tensei suru. This is a painfully awkward power fantasy type show. The Demon Lord is reincarnated as a normal person. Normal here meaning massively overpowered but with no social skills. The entire first episode is the boy trying to make friends, because apparently in neither his past life nor the first 10 years of this life did he develop a single social skill. I don't know to whom this is meant to appeal. A Stab Life Great Escape. This show takes place in a sci-fi world with slime people and beast people. And in this world, people are given predetermined lives in the area that they're born, and they're not allowed to change things or moves. So we're following extractors who help people escape. For anime reasons, these extractors are high school girls. Even more bafflingly, while doing a job that blatantly goes against the government and all established social rules, they don't wear disguises. And maybe this is brought up in subsequent episodes, but if all the extractors do is physically put you in a new ward, how do you get a job in this new place? Everything is predetermined, so without papers or whatever, it should be obvious you don't belong there, right? Anyways, this is poorly thought out, and the CG is functional, but not attractive. Love all play. Our main character has a badminton player he looks up to and idolizes, even though said player is only 1 year older than him. But he thinks that getting into the same school is impossible. And then said school comes and offers him a sports scholarship that he turns down because his dad doesn't like sports scholarships. So then the main character studies his ass off and gets an academic scholarship, meaning he could have gotten in all along. That's the entire first episode. I had it on 2 times speed, and I was bored most of the time. And coming back 2 months later, working on this script, I read the name of this show, and I could not recall what it was. I was like, was there a tennis anime? If you really like badminton, go watch last season's Battery Man instead, because that was a fun show. Kakko no iinazuke. Someone gathered all the high school rom-com tropes they could find, taped them together with mediocre animation, and said, look, a functional product. I get that it's common now for background characters to be a flat CG, but here even the main characters are flat CG like 80% of the time, and then it cuts to them being high quality occasionally, and it's really disconcerting. Our main character was switched by birth at accident, and thus is not the blood child of his family. They still love him. And now they've gotten the opportunity to meet the other family and the child that should have been theirs. A side note, yes, I know that kids do get switched at birth, but this switch requires a gender swap and everyone not noticing their hair color changing. But I digress. On the day he's meant to meet his birth parents, he meets a girl who's trying to get out of an arranged marriage and decides to do it by pretending this guy is her boyfriend. Of course, this turns out to actually be the child he was switched with at birth. All of their parents decided to get them engaged because they could be one big family and all the parents could be parents to their blood children and the child they raised. And the sister he was raised with is like, oh, we're not actually siblings? Which I do not think is the feeling you have after living together for 16 years, but okay. I skim the synopses of shows like a month before they come out, and thus do not usually remember anything when I'm going in. And I'm the type who actively tries not to figure out plot twists because I have more fun being surprised. And yet I was able to predict every single thing that happened in this episode. It's also not very good looking. I will give it credit for the one good joke that got me. But this show is in competition with like 5 other romance shows this season, and I'm pretty sure even if it was the only rom-com, I still wouldn't watch it. Gaigotsu Kishi-sama tadaima isekai e otekake-chu. Okay, look. I'm not saying you can never show sexual assault in media, but why the hell is this your cold open? I will be honest, I turned this off immediately, so I don't know if they were rescued or if the whole thing was played out for titillation, but I have no trust in this show because this is the first thing they chose to show me. This is the introduction. This show could be great. I don't know. But I think a great show would have a better way to start than going for sheer shock value at the cost of assaulting feminine bodies. According to the Mother Basement Ones to Watch video, the rest of the show is nothing like this, but that almost makes it worse. Why the hell did you decide to do this? The fine section is for shows that I think work. If it's got a trope you love, a genre you love, a character you love, these can be a great time. But if it's not your thing, they may not be worth it. Otomage sekai o mob ni sekai desu. This is an isekai where a boy who was blackmailed into playing an otome game for his sister dies shortly thereafter and finds himself in the world of the game. The good news, he has an expert level understanding of the game and its characters, and some pay-to-win DLC he'd paid for in his first life. The bad news, he's just some guy, not one of the main characters. And this is a matriarchal world, so the expectations for a guy are to find a good woman willing to marry him and be a good little house husband. Also, while this is a fantasy world, it's one whose setting is taking place in the future where there was once a super advanced technological setting. That all sounds pretty cool, right? I did enjoy the world building of this show, really I did. But I also felt terribly bored, resorting to speeding it up, and I have absolutely no desire to watch more of it. I do think it has potential, though. Maho Tsukai Reimeki. This apparently is a sequel series to something called Grimoire Zero. I hadn't seen that either. This show had some interesting character designs, executed with annoying personalities and a slow as molasses pace. I read some episode synopses from Grimoire Zero and felt that it was probably also fine, but didn't seem amazing. I usually describe the plot of the episode more than this, but I really don't remember much. The witch was at the school, and then her and the other main characters go on a mission to somewhere. There's a lizard guy. Given that I was feeling bored in the first episode, which is supposed to catch your interest, it didn't make me want to watch more of this or Grimoire Zero, but I really don't think they look bad. The animation and character designs were nice. I just think you can probably find something better. Oh, also the main guy has amnesia. Tum-de-tum-de-tum. Tomodachi Game. My initial thoughts seeing this poster was that it was a terrible looking death game. I'm always down for a death game, but I have seen some unwatchable ones. I was wrong. This is both watchable and not a death game. It has a very death game setup, but killing isn't the point. In fact, there were no deaths in the episode I watched, and it didn't seem like any were incoming in any immediate way. In this show, there's a close-knit foursome of friends whose friendship is tested when two of them are responsible for the class trip money which goes missing. And then they're all brought to a secret location and told that one of them is desperately in debt. However, if they complete some games together, games that will be easy if they are truly friends, then they can wipe out the debt. But to enter, they'll all have to take on a share of the huge debt. So the drama is coming from small interpersonal frictions that in normal life are very ignorable, but in a stressful situation where you are offered a variety of twists, similar to the prisoner's dilemma. I enjoyed watching this. I was very interested in where this was going. So why did I stop? I saw a comment about the show that mentioned that the manga was still going. What? The setup said there were 5 games, which seems perfect for a tight, satisfying 12-episode anime season. What do you mean this is an ongoing manga with 20 volumes? I'm not in it for the long haul. If it were a tight 1-season complete story, I would have watched it. That said, maybe you want it to be an epic multi-season thing, and we'll eat it all up. Onipan! This show takes place in modern Japan, but here Oni are real. And they have a bad reputation. They've been portrayed as antagonists in a lot of classical Japanese folklore, so they face stigma in society. 3 Oni girls are carefully chosen to become exchange students in a small city to help people get to know Oni. They are also gifted with magical Oni underwear. The pan in Onipan is short for pantsu, which is Japanese for underwear. This show is colorful, adorable, and has nice animation. It is not for me. I can't handle childish voices excitedly declaring Onipan every scene transition. Onipan! Also, in the preview for the next episode, don't make me go! Kunoichi Tsubaki no Mune no Uchi. We meet a group of Kunoichi, think female ninjas, in training, living in a secret village completely without men. And our main character is getting hit hard by puberty. After a near encounter of the masculine kind, the usually diligent student is now constantly distracted by thoughts of what men might be like. This is mostly a comedy show, one based on the interactions between the girls. And it's the kind of show where each character has like one strong personality trait. The main girl's kohai, her lower classmates that she's in charge of, are a girl who's obsessed with her and a ditzy dumb girl who is only motivated by food. Like, either you're going to enjoy a bunch of preteens interacting or not. I think it's well crafted and stylistic, but it just wasn't for me. I liked the bits where she was conflicted between wanting to see the men but not wanting to see the men more than the school bits, and when I watched the second episode it was entirely the school stuff. Koi wa sekai seifuku no ato de. We find ourselves once again in a Sentai or Power Rangers world. Our main characters are the leader of the Gelato Force and one of the lieutenants of the baddies. And they're dating. Secretly, of course. I liked the first episode, but I was already concerned about the gag running thin. I was wondering where they would take it. And based on the second episode, where they took it was very standard comic misunderstandings. That's just not my preferred kind of comedy. The animation is very standard, with occasional nicely detailed moments, especially of Desumi fighting. I will say that I greatly enjoyed Desumi-chan. There's this wonderful contrast between her badass Shinigami self when she's doing evil, and her daily self, which is very normal Japanese girl. The male lead is an epic himbo, so I can also see that appealing to some. Aharen-san wa hakarenai. This is a high school rom-com, emphasis more so on the comedy here. Aharen is incomprehensible. That's the title, and it has a couple meanings. Firstly, Aharen speaks inaudibly quiet, to the point where the main guy basically develops super hearing out of his dedications to understand her. But even once he can hear her, he still doesn't understand her at all. She talks about wanting to keep a distance from people because she's overly clingy, but she's terrible at that, laying on top of him and getting right in his face to talk. Comedy is very subjective, and this just wasn't hitting for me, but in like a really weird way. Like if I describe what happened, I think it's funny, but actually watching it in the show, it didn't make me laugh. I tried messing around with the speed to see if I could get on the same wavelength, and it didn't work. But it had a lot of charm, so you could give it a try and see if it hits for you, or maybe try the manga. Gunjo no Fanfare. Our main character stuns Japan by quitting his job as part of a popular idol group, announcing that he actually wants to go to school to be a jockey. We get one obligatory girl and a small group of guys, some fushoshi baiting, and a small number of jockey characters. The show has so little confidence in its plot that rather than firming up the characters that are already there, it just keeps adding more guys. The best part of this show is their teacher, whose personality sprinkles random English into his sentences, made all the more delicious when they get a foreign student who makes fun of the teacher's English.
フィジカル面でのフィジカル。あまね、少し静かに。
I'm so sorry.
では、改めて次のページに。
Hey!
The foreign kid's name is Grace, and he literally passes out when talking to girls.
Oh god.
どうしたの？
I think this has potential as like a hate watch. There were a lot of funny parts. I laughed a lot in the first episode. But it's mostly not intentional, and it can be really boring in between. The show also looks really cheap with a lot of slow zoom panels. The more I watched, the more the tedium was outweighing the funny. Daimon, a girl whose deadbeat guitarist dad abandoned her at a Japanese confectionery shop, was more or less adopted by the owners and raised to run the place. Meanwhile, the couple's real son, who they originally thought would run the store, ran away to be in a rock band, and now that the rock band has failed, he's returned to take over the shop, only to discover he's not first in line anymore. This has a really nice art style. It seems like a really good, sweet, comfy family drama, which is just not at all my thing. But if it's your type of show, I think it could be really good. Summertime Render. As this video is probably, hopefully, coming out sometime in the summer, here's a nice summer watch for you. A man goes back to his hometown on a semi-isolated island for the funeral of a childhood friend, only to discover something strange is going on, and we get a supernatural action-y mystery show. The pacing seemed okay. It was a bit slow leading up to the big reveal at the end of the first episode, but I think that makes sense for this kind of mystery show, and I'm pretty sure things are going to move a lot quicker now that we've moved past the illusion of normal island life. Honestly, it was really well made. It's just not my genre. I did do some checking, and it seems like it will be a complete story, so if you like this kind of stuff, you can check it out. RPG Fudosan. Where to start? This show takes place in a fantasy world where people work regular jobs even though they have character classes. There was once a demon king and heroes, but they already defeated him, and now they're in an age of peace and prosperity. Our main character has gotten a new job in the city, working at a real estate office. With the rest of the crew of girls, they help people and creatures find the perfect house for them. And I present to you the good, the bad, and the awkward. The good. This show is comfy. A great comfort show. I have dinner shows which aren't the most plotty or extreme, but I know I can throw them on while I'm eating dinner and enjoy it without, like, choking on laughter or being stunned by a strange plot advance. And this show worked great for that. The relationships between the characters were cute and sweet, like platonic relationship goals. And it's a show featuring working women, not a fucking school show. Always an advantage. The bad. Like, be a comfy show or be a plot show. As the show kept going, it kept teasing at a plot while absolutely refusing to progress it in any meaningful way, which ruined the comfy vibe for me. Also, the solutions to the customer's problems were always really obvious. Like, wow, you meant the problem from the B plot is the solution to the A plot? Again? I never would have guessed. Though awkward. I don't want to kink shame, but these character designs and the outfits they wear, oh god. I couldn't escape the feeling that it was meant to appeal to people who are into lollies. Like, even though some of the characters are large-chested adults, they're drawn in this cute, childish manner. And the child character is constantly barely dressed and prefers to be naked, stripping off her clothes at a moment's notice. And, like, in theory, a child or childish character not wanting to wear clothes is really normal because some kids are like that. But the way the characters are presented, the strong sense of the male gaze in the shots they choose was really uncomfortable for me. The beach episode in particular was really uncomfortable. Their bathing suits were chosen by someone who literally doesn't know what swimsuit should look like or function as. Everyone is wearing suits that are way too small for their breasts that look incredibly uncomfortable. You can't just have a tiny strap covering your breasts when you have a big chest like that. In reality, your boobs would just flop right out. There's no support at all. Just, ugh. Ultimately, it reached a point with the slow plot reveals where there's just no reasonable way to explain why the plot wasn't advancing, except for the meta, we have this many episodes left, so we can't do that yet. So I got mad and quit. Dans Dansel. Our main character, Monkey Boy, lost his father at a young age. His father, who was a martial artist and film fight choreographer. He devoted himself to the same martial art as his dad with the dream of following in his footsteps. But there's a problem. When he was a child, he went to a ballet recital, and while 90% of the time he was bored to literal sleep, he wakes up right when this wild male dancer comes out and puts on a fucking show. And so when he's on his own in his room, he does ballet. He's not really properly trained. He's hiding it because he's suffering from internalized toxic masculinity and also the attitudes of his male friends. Until one day he meets a very pretty girl who's very serious about ballet and whose mom owns a ballet studio. And they agree to help train this guy despite his wildness because he has an amazing fitness, spark, energy, and amazing feet. I don't usually like monkey personality characters, but I liked him well enough. The dancing is absolutely amazing in this show, although I don't exactly love the designs of the characters. Also, the show has this weird uncanny valley where the characters are so flexible, and I'm sure it's actually modeled on like real ballet, but because they're animated, it reads as unnatural in my brain. I ultimately stopped watching because too much of the show was just high school drama that was just facepalm painful for me. Yusha Yamimasu. This takes place in a fantasy world with a repeating cycle of demons from the demon realm invading the human realm, and a hero who arises to defeat the Demon King. We meet the hero after he's already defeated the Demon King, or Queen as it were this time around. But here's the thing. He's so powerful that humans are scared of him, and rather than being rewarded for his deeds, he's ostracized, leading him to go and join what's left of the demon army. This is a weird one. This show is basically two different shows awkwardly stitched together. One of those shows is generically meh, where it's like using business skills to help the fantasy army. And the other half is actually really cool world building, but its potential is squandered by the first half. Also, the cool shit doesn't show up until like halfway through the season. There is awesome world building that starts showing up later on. The show is properly concluded at the end of the season, which I do regard as a positive, but it's not a super strong ending or anything. I don't regret the time I spent watching it, though. It did give me a lot to think about. Rike ga koi ni ochita no de shoumei shite mita hato. Or Season 2 of Rike Koi. I liked Season 1 of this show too, and talked about it before. Basically, this is a rom-com where the main characters are scientists, and they decide that they need to research love and prove what it is before they can say that they love each other. So the show revolves around various experiments to prove their love. The first 2 episodes of this season were the worst of the entire series, in my opinion, but the rest of the season got back to what I liked the first time around. We ended in a place I did not expect, and makes me excited for a potential Season 3. We also got the mention of the Kinsey scale, which, while not a perfect scale, it was nice to have the concept of bisexuality formally mentioned in an anime. Pari Pico Ome. I usually skip music tag shows unless there's something that screams to me that I should watch it, like the terrible Fusoshi Bait Vampire Vizkei show from a couple seasons ago. But a few people were recommending this, so I tried it, and it's pretty fun. Turns out that I am a dork, and adding strategy to anything makes me more interested. In this show, Kome, a famous Chinese tactician, is reborn in modern-day Tokyo when he dies, with his full memories, already an adult, and even wearing his traditional clothes still. He's surprised to find himself in an era of peace, and decides to use his strategic brain to support this random singer he found while drunk on Halloween, and help her become a huge pop star. At first, people think he's a very eccentric man, but as he continually comes up on top with his strategies, they start to accept his claims about who he is. This show doesn't have a lot of full-length song performances, which can get really repetitive in music shows. And when there are performances, they don't turn 3D, so that's already dodged most of my least favorite features of music shows. If you're familiar with the Three Kingdoms type stuff that Kome is from, you'll likely get more out of the references than I did, but thankfully the girl's boss at work is really big into Three Kingdoms, so he helps explain the references. This show is really wholesome. I like that while Kome's strategy is helping Eika to get ahead, what it's really doing is giving her attention, putting the eyes on her, but it's her talent that shines through. It's her talent that keeps the people's attention. I like that the show avoided romance. Not that I dislike romance, but if it's not going to be a major part of your show, then ditch it. And it's refreshing to see representations of normal male-female friendships. I like the idea of women dressing in certain ways to further their careers, being a concept the show directly engages in, but it doesn't feel like it's vilifying women who might choose to use their looks to their advantage. Birdie Wing Golf Girl Story. I'm going to tell you what this show is about, and it might sound like I'm lying or exaggerating, but I am not. This show is about an amnesiac woman participating in underground golf battles with the mafia in order to protect her family of orphans from getting their bar bulldozed down. It is also as lesbian as a show can be without getting tagged as lesbian. It is amazing. Eve's golf takes the form of different shots, which she refers to as her rainbow bullets. Most of the time, this just means insane brute strength. There's a sick guitar sting every time she hits the ball. She also has a distinct fashion style, which is very attractive, but not in the usual, slutty anime way. In a normal, confident woman way. Also, Eve is tall, and that makes me happy. This show is stupid fun. This show is the kind of stuff I think of when I think of anime. If this show was trying to be serious, it could not use half of its plot points. This is a show where someone speaks Japanese to the main character, she replies, and they're like, "You speak Japanese?" And she's like, "Oh, I guess so." And the show just moves on. Everybody has their own little logos on their golf balls. The one girl is obsessed with Gunpla because the director of the show previously directed a Gundam show. You know the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo? Well, one of them is a sexy golf villain snake lady now. If the show kept going at the pace of the first 6 episodes, it would have been high up in my recommendation section. Unfortunately... it's still good. It's just not as epic. Although they're getting a season 2, I assume because the first season just stopped in the middle of a tournament arc. I'm not sure I can recommend the show as a whole until I see what goes on in the rest of season 2, but the first few episodes are a lot of fun. At last, we come to the shows that I recommend. I think these are so good they're worth a try, even if they might not initially seem like your thing. I think this is the most shows I've ever recommended in one season, because this was a great season. Kawaii dake janai Shikimori-san. The high school rom-com slice-of-life anime. One of the most overdone genres in all of anime. And somehow I have 2 of them in my recommended section this season. This show has an initial hook that gets you through the first episode, which is that the main male character is so unlucky it's practically some kind of curse. This leads to some easily accessible slapstick that really helps to set up what the show is actually about. This gag would have gotten old really fast if it was the whole show. No. This show is about the girl, Shikimori, and their relationship. Shikimori is a badass. great reflexes, strong, competitive nearly to a fault. But that's not what Japanese culture and the rom-coms she's read growing up lead her to understand she should be. She should be pretty, stylish, cute. Guys want a girl they can protect, right? But the guy is so clumsy that she usually ends up protecting him. The opening theme even declares, somehow I seem more like the boyfriend. Luckily, the guy is into it. He likes when Shikamori is cute, yes. But he also likes when she's a badass. At one point he calls her an ikemen, a hot guy. This anime engages with these cultural stereotypes in a light, fun way, with characters sometimes using the tropes and sometimes going against them. It also starts with our characters already in a relationship. There's no will they, won't they, there's no jealous love triangles. Okay, Shikimori imagines, gay scenarios between her boyfriend and his best friend and gets a little jealous, but she keeps it to herself because she knows she's just being silly. I remember a meme on the internet with the girl Ghostbusters where someone was complaining about how the male character was treated like a token and he was just there for the women to look at, and it was like, yeah, this is how women feel about 90% of other movies. This show gives me the same thing, but for women being portrayed as helpless. If you get annoyed at the boy in this show being useless and constantly needing rescue, well, this is what happens with female characters all the time. I'm amazed at how well they use his clumsiness. It's here's an explanation for plot contrivance, but it also gives this extra layer of tension to some scenes because you're just waiting for it. You're like, all right, what's going to go wrong this time? I love anything that messes with gender roles. I took every gender and sexuality course offered at my university. So this show is right up my alley, and it's all done in this warm, easy breezy, fun, sweet way. Shokei Shoujo no Virgin Road. This is a fun twist on the isekai formula with some awesome world building. This show gives me Full Metal Alchemist vibes. It's nowhere near as good as Full Metal Alchemist, but to even give me that kind of excited feeling is worth mentioning. This is also the kind of show where I think going in blind to the first episode is the better experience, so I'm going to be pretty vague for most of this review, and then I will give a first episode plot summary at the end. This show has a predominantly female cast and exists in a fantasy world that is highly stratified. There are distinct social castes. It also does not have any strange video game tropes that you find in anime fantasy stories even when they aren't a video game. There are no levels, people don't have to find classes or anything like that. Most of the time the animation is serviceable, but things do get pretty awesome during the fight scenes. This is the kind of show where it's hard to tell who to trust. Who is good, who is bad. Are our main characters heroes? In video games, if there's one character that stands out, they tend to nerf the OP character. And I've always felt why not just buff everyone else? I don't make video games, so I don't know how viable that is. But this show feels like the result of buffing everyone. Everyone feels wildly powerful, but they all have different strengths and weaknesses, so their fighting styles remain distinct. This show isn't going to give you a fight every episode, though. Like FMA, there's a lot more going on in the plot than just battles. For a while in the middle of the series, I was regretting that it wasn't going to be a tight one-season anime, which is often what I'm hoping for. But as more has been revealed, the tight version would have been amazing, but I'm much more optimistic about the long haul now. I will be super excited for more. There better be more. Now I'm going to give a still mostly non-spoilery summary, but it will ruin episode 1 for you. So skip to this time if you don't want that. This fantasy world regularly receives Japanese people who have been isekai'd. They are called Lost Ones. The Lost Ones each get a power which is representative of a pure concept. For example, we encounter the pure concept of nullification in this show, and no, that's not the most powerful one we will see. The problem is that there's a mental cost to using these powers, which inevitably leads to a Lost One going out of control. As such, each Lost One is a crisis. They could be the end of the world. And we are following church-sponsored assassins whose goal is to kill these Lost Ones before they can bring calamity to the world. If that doesn't make you want to see more, I don't know what would. Aoashi. This is the best sports anime I have ever watched. It's seinen, not shonen, which means the target audience is a bit more mature than that of Prince of Tennis or Haikyuu. The show is much more of a grounded drama. There are no super moves here. Ashito, our main character, was the best player on his small town school team, to the point where the team's entire strategy was get Ashito the ball and wait for him to score. We immediately recognize that his family must be poor since we're shown that his cleats are falling apart. He gets recruited to a Tokyo youth team, which presents the possibility of going pro and literally making his living playing soccer. He loves soccer and doesn't really have any other skills, and he wants to support his family, so this is an unbelievable opportunity. That said, even something like this takes money, so his family is investing in him taking his shot at this opportunity. It's a lot of pressure, especially when he finds out that because he wasn't really challenged by the level of play at his hometown, he does have a lot of talent and ability, but he basically knows shit about the basics that all the other soccer players who've gone through proper training know. They know it so well, they don't even understand that he doesn't know it. What really sets this apart from other sports anime is that there are no tournament arcs here. There are no super moves. We rarely even see opposing teams or official games. This is about the competitive nature of the squad itself. The youth team has an A team and a B team, and the A team is the path into professional play. What do you need to do to move up to the A team, or up to the pro team? How can you be teammates with the people who are also your competition to stay in the program? Sometimes the difference between a fine show and a recommendation is the hook, the X factor. When you have to wait for the next episode, how do you feel? I watched an episode of Aoashi like 50 minutes ago, and I'm frustrated I can't watch the next one, and it wasn't even a cliffhanger. Bonus! This show is ongoing in the summer season, and seeing how the summer season is shaping up, this is probably going to be one of the best shows of that season too. Komi-san wa Komi-sho. Hey, it's season 2 of Komi-san. I feel like I liked the first season better, but this is still some good shit. In case you didn't see it last time I talked about it, this show is about a gorgeous girl named Komi who is so attractive that people didn't notice for years that she doesn't talk. She has extreme anxiety and no friends. At first. Then Tadano, the most average man possible, realizes that she doesn't talk, and we get to see them get closer, we see Komi's attempts to fit in, and on the touching side, we see her experience normal things like going to a Christmas party or going to a water park that she had never done before because she didn't have anyone to go with or was too nervous to try. And all the characters around them are totally wacky, and quite a few of them are obsessed with Komi. Something I noticed this time around, which manga readers probably already knew, is the way the school is filled with characters. A lot of high school shows have the main characters and then just undefined shades. In those shows, when a new character becomes important, they just appear out of nowhere. But in Komi, you can go back and watch previous episodes and see that the characters have always been there. This show is funny, it's touching, and it's very well done. Speaking of funny, touching, well done shows, Spy Family. And no one is surprised. The much anticipated, excellently done anime adaptation of the very popular Shonen Jump Plus manga was widely hyped and is in fact very good. This is a rollicking comedy about a world-class spy tasked with preventing war and maintaining world peace. For his mission, he needs to get close to a notoriously reclusive minister, and the best way to do so is through the ridiculously elite school that man's son goes to. Except, what's a spy to do? He can't go to elementary school himself. He needs to make a family. He adopts a girl who, unbeknownst to him, happens to be psychic. This school has an insane rule requiring both parents to come to examinations. No exceptions. And like, fucking really? People die, people get divorced. This is the worst school rule ever. Anyway, plot contrivances are fine when it's setting up something this fun. So Lloyd also needs a wife. He just doesn't realize that the woman he recruits for that job happens to be a world-class assassin.
殺し屋だと見抜かれてしまいます。もっと普通の人にならなくては。殺し屋スパイ殺し屋あにゃワクワク
少女は娯楽に飢えていた。
The comedy beats work. The sweet found family situation works. The action works so well, I regret that there isn't more action. I think the worst parts are parts with Anya when she's at school, but even these worst parts aren't bad, especially because Anya is adorable. And now it's time for Best Girl, and this season has a bevy of honorable nominees. Anya and Yor from Spy Family would both be great choices. I guess I want to know them a bit better first. I could choose one of the girls from Virgin Road. I could even make an argument for Hana from Aoashi. Lord knows the relationship between her and Ashito is very natural. And there's even a previous Best Girl recipient, Komi. But, Eve is my girl. Eve will risk it all without a second thought to protect those she loves. She's bold and she does what she wants, what makes her comfortable and happy. She values promises, family, and individuality. She exudes confidence and backs it up. As for Best Boy, my honorable mention definitely goes to Agent Twilight, aka Lloyd Forger from Spy Family, because goddamn that show is good at making you like the characters and showing their interesting connections. But I'm going to give it to Ashito from Aoashi. He's such a strong character. So much strength of will and determination. He's dealing with a lot, but he keeps on going, and he's willing to put in the work to get what he wants. He's a bit slow on the uptake, but will earnestly apologize for his mistakes and is always grateful for the help he receives. I said earlier that I don't really like the monkey boy trope, and I stand by that, but this is a situation where the character, you could say they fit in the trope, but they go so far beyond that. And those are often the characters that I end up liking the best. And now it's time for the trans non-binary highlight. We once again have Najimi from Komi-san. She was included in a What Girl Do You Want to Date segment and slept in the girls' room on the field trip, although they bathed separately, which I like, because she's generally accepted by the girls, but then she gracefully removes herself from a situation that could make them feel uncomfortable. If she had more to do this season, she probably would have been nominated for Best Girl as well. And the main character from Yusha Yamimasu. In one of the lines in the background world building, he says, "I have no gender, but I was designed to appear masculine," which made me go, "What?" And then it was never brought up again. I didn't write a conclusion. That's it for one of the best seasons of anime that I recall seeing recently. There were a lot of amazing shows here, to the point where it was really hard to keep up. Luckily, summer is not looking so strong, so this video is a perfect chance to figure out what you should be watching, because there's nothing to watch right now. Yeah, that's it. See you next time. Bye-bye. Do 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 do